trust your gut. How many times have any of us received that type of instruction or maybe made a decision based off of a hunch? I like to think that I have good women's intuition, whatever you call it. Can we really trust our sixth sense? That is the question today. And here now with maybe a little bit more of an explanation for us, Dr. Hongkui Zeng, Executive Vice President and Director of Brain Science at the Allen Institute. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today.
So this NIH-supported initiative is now seeking to unravel how the nervous system tracks and regulates the body's internal organs, or interoception, as I'm seeing. What does that mean in layman's terms?
Okay, so you mentioned the word the sixth sense. The sixth sense we talk about here is not the usual sixth sense. People think about, some mysterious things that's happening that you are sensing. Normally we have five senses: vision, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. This is all interacting with the external world. The sixth sense we talk about here is really sensing what's happening in our internal body, the internal organs. Your heart, lungs, stomach, gut, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So the nervous system monitors all these organs working at all time, but it's mostly subconscious. But of course, they are extremely important for us, for the brain to sense and regulate all those activities to allow, the body to function normally.
Give me some examples of internal signals that we may be receiving on a regular basis.
For example, whether your stomach is full or not, whether you're, when you have the urge to go to bathroom, and even your heart beating, it's going fast, slow, your blood pressure is high or low. That's all sensed by the brain constantly all the time. And another very important thing is actually your immune function. Whether there's pathogens in your body, how your immune system is attacking that, when do you produce antibodies or T cells, and all that is to some extent very much regulated by the brain as well, because the brain is able to sense all these signals from different organs and integrate them together and coordinate the responses of the different organs. So it's extremely important to understand that coordination process.
Yes, so important. So I'm seeing researchers from Scripps Research and Allen Institute, your employer, have been awarded the National Institutes of Health Directors Transformative Research Award to develop the first comprehensive map or atlas of this internal sensory network. It sounds like a game changer. Would you describe it as that? And how so would it change the game for us?
I would definitely describe that as a game changer. Currently, we have so little understanding of how brain interacts with all these different organs. So creating that map, understanding the different pathways, going into the brain and coming out of the brain, will be transforming the way that we research, all these different systems and how they change under different diseased conditions. So creating this high resolution foundational map about specific pathways and how they come together will facilitate a lot of other researches and also on a disease front.
You mentioned a couple of things that I kind of want to break down here. Why do you think we still have these huge gaps in our understanding of human health if this is so important? I see one scholar even deemed this largely unexplored frontier of neuroscience. So why are we behind on this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one thing maybe is just that it's difficult to study the interaction between brain and body. It involves a much larger system. And also traditionally how science was done in an isolated way. People who study heart, they just focus on heart, cardiovascular function. If they study the immune system, they just study the immune system. And for neuroscience, for brain scientists like me, I'm mainly just focusing on the brain itself and even the external sensing that I talk about, vision, smell, hearing, things like that. And that's really the brain directly interact with external world. It's only started a few years ago that technologies now allow us to have this comprehensive mapping of the interaction between brain and body that scientists began to focus on this problem. There's still so much unknown. So this effort will fill that critical gap, creating that map that then will allow researchers to study all those kind of interactions in much greater detail.
Yeah, let's talk about some of the things that it could help with. It seems like it could find some new pathways, some new approaches to treating diseases, and how long would it take before we go from this research to actually seeing its impact?
Yeah, that's a great question too. Usually it takes a long time to translate what we have learned in the lab into real applications. But it's always an ongoing process. And what we do now every day is plugging new knowledge into existing knowledge so that we can translate that into real benefits to people as soon as possible. It usually takes several years, 5 to 10 years to have really tangible effect from what I'm doing now today. But if we can plug into something that we already know, for example, how we can regulate the immune system better, given that we already know so much about the immune system, I hope that translation can become a lot faster, maybe in just a couple of years, within that kind of time range.
Yeah, and when we talk about treating certain things, obviously when you talk about neuroscience, maybe someone's first thought would go to something like Alzheimer's, maybe or earlier detection. What are some other things that it could help with from that standpoint?
I want to give an example about eating, obesity, and metabolism, diabetes, high blood pressure, obesity, all these kind of issues. Just give you a very quick example. As you know, many people have now been taking GLP-1 drugs that help to reduce the body weight. However, many of those drugs, they are tremendously useful, but they also have side effects. And now we're studying through this brain-body interaction, we're studying how these drugs, affect the brain and affect the person's appetite. The desire to eat becomes much suppressed.
Right.
But also how those drugs may cause side effects like fatigue, headache, and things like that. And then we can then separate that, and we select the drugs that only work on the positive side of the effect and minimize the negative side of the effect. So this is the kind of thing we are looking at very specific pathways. In this particular case, it's really the regulation of appetite and metabolism.
Yeah, and once you identify these signals and the neurons, how do we know that it's sending a specific message, not maybe mimicking something else?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's why we need to understand the mechanisms and the molecular players involved, or specific regions, specific types of cells in the brain that are involved in the different effects. If we can identify the target in terms of the cells and the genes, then we can tailor our treatments to that very specific targets.
So what's the overall message you would want people to take from this study and the work that's being done?
The overall message is, I guess it's just that, scientific progress is really just continuous. The more we learn, the more we explore, the more data that we generate, the better we understand how our body works. And then we will, be better able to treat the different kinds of illnesses, and also even identifying new ways of treating some disease, such as Alzheimer's, you talk about Parkinson's. They actually both have the components of brain-body interactions and neuroimmune interactions. So, this kind of research really opens up doors for new ways of thinking about treating all kinds of diseases.
Obviously in the last several weeks, we've talked to several researchers who have been affected by funding cuts. Even yesterday, we were talking about the military being paid during this government shutdown with unused money for research and development. Are you affected by that? Are you concerned about funding cuts for the research that you're doing?
Yes, certainly we're concerned about the funding cuts. Because we are bringing benefits to the society all the time. We affect the work that we do. As I said, every time, the more you understand, it really opens up ways of treating diseases better, and also attacking some problems that you just didn't know that was possible. So I feel like this kind of work is really benefiting the entire society, and should be really supported strongly for the long term.
Well, I look forward to seeing where it goes from here. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity.